Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown! ISB!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Wednesday. It's August 9th. Glad to be with you as always. Great show coming to you. Don't forget Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best of new and used vehicles. And the Wow family, Wow Food Group, and their family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Great places like Hoosier Hank's Pizza Mac, where you can get the best in pizzas, tot bowls, mac bowls, right there on North College. Welcome aboard, Johnny Boy. Great lineup today. Rob Cassidy from Rivals will join us. We'll talk some basketball recruiting. Kyle Neddenriep will get caught up on it's about football season. Rick Bozich, boy, I bet he's just having a joy right now with his White Sox, by the way.
Speaking of Rivals, I don't know if you'll talk with Rob Cassidy about this, but yesterday, Rivals became the first recruiting site to introduce comprehensive team rankings, which that means it includes the transfer portal, the recruiting class, and what you have coming back on your roster. No other website currently has something like that, so shout out to Rivals.
Absolutely, and you can go to thehoosier.com to catch up on that. Alec Bussey will be with us later on from thehoosier.com to go over that, but Rob Cassidy, we'll talk to Rob about that today in addition to that, so great point. Indiana partnering with SeatGeeks for fans to be the official secondary ticket market, which I'm not sure if this is to be helpful or if this is to keep track of season ticket holders who are selling their tickets, which I would be a lot more, like if I had, I'll be honest with you, if I was a season ticket holder, not using it, I wouldn't want Indiana knowing that I'm selling my tickets, because that's what they look at. And it used to be a lot of times some schools would see people selling their tickets and they jerk them. So, but anyway, there's that. So you got that going for you, which is nice. But speaking of partnerships, where's the one that I just saw, the gambling? Who just joined?
ESPN did. They now have ESPN Bet.
Yes.
What it's called.
Yes. ESPN launching a new sports book called ESPN Bet, like John just said. A partnership with Penn Entertainment, the deal worth a staggering $2 billion over 10 years. Part of the deal, ESPN sold Barstool Sports back to founder Dave Portnoy. But ESPN now in the betting game, which that's not a surprise. I mean, how can I be surprised? We've got NFL stadiums. I didn't know this until recently, but the NFL stadiums have the sports books in the damn stadiums. So there is the lines, I don't want to say are getting murkier, but they're getting closer. They're certainly getting closer, but with sports and betting and all of that. So it just keeps coming and keeps coming. But yeah, to me, that's a natural, because ESPN I'm surprised they didn't do that a long time ago. They have the audience captured. You're laying out the odds. Hell, just make the bets right there, which they are. Let's see. So ESPN has been very clear for a number of years about entertaining the sports gambling space. The question was always at what level and in what form. In an interview with The Athletic last year, ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitero was clear that something was coming and it would ultimately be significant. Well, there you go. There's that. So, what are your thoughts? Not that it really matters. I don't. What's the difference between how your bet gets through?
I mean, I guess they just want to be able to find new ways to bring in revenue, and
exactly
they can compete with FanDuel and DraftKings and Caesars and all those other ones that are out there.
Yeah, there's a ton of them out there, man. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a sports betting app now, and more states are legalizing it. When does it become legal in Kentucky?
So by, I think it's the beginning of September, you'll be able to bet online, or excuse me, it's either one way, because at the beginning of the month, you can either do it at the sports books, and then at the end of the month, you'll be able to do it online, and it's vice versa. I can't think of which one happens on which date, but each of the horse racing tracks in Kentucky will be partnered with one of the different sports books.
So there you go on that. Let's see. Baseball, they are on track for the lowest numbers of errors in recorded history. And no one knows exactly why. There's been some rule changes. They've outlawed the shift. But league batting average is up from 243 to 248. But where have all the errors gone? So are they getting a little lazier with assigning errors? It's just kind of weird. There's technology, but it's just kind of a weird deal going on in baseball. Speaking of baseball, I cannot wait to talk to Rick about his White Sox, the fight, the everything that they had going on with those guys. Not fun. But Chicago Cubs, they were rolling. They lost the other day and fell out of that second place tie. The Reds ended up losing last night. I don't know what the Brewers did. Have to check to see what the Brewers did. Let's see. There was something else that I really wanted to hit on, but I can't find it right now. But yeah, IU partnering with SeatGeek, so you'll have a direct way to sell your tickets if you want to, which that probably there's just so many competing entities of everything, whether it's gambling, seats, beer, it doesn't matter what it is. Conferences, yeah, ACC. Considering adding SMU along with Cal and Stanford, which I just don't see the Cal Stanford thing happening. I know that geography is kind of been eliminated, but yet not. I don't think it's eliminated when you're talking about Cal and Stanford versus just completely two coasts is all that it is. At least with the Big Ten, you're stretched out from coast to coast. It's not just on the coast. But in addition to ongoing exploration of adding Stanford and Cal, the ACC is set to discuss an expansion scenario in which it also adds SMU at a meeting of league athletic directors. That is supposed to happen tonight. A source briefed on the conference's plans. Yahoo Sports first reported the development. Here's what you need to know. ACC athletic directors met yesterday, followed by league presidents this morning to discuss the possibility of adding Stanford and Cal, but no vote on the issue was taken. Another meeting of ACC athletic directors scheduled for this morning. Oh, wait a minute. This is Wednesday, right? All day. This was yesterday that this happened. So that was supposed to happen last night. SMU, a member of the AAC currently, since its current version formed in 2013 has been outside a major power conference since the Southwest Conference dissolved in 96. Surprised they didn't jump into the Big 12. The Mustangs were reported to be a Pac-12 expansion target earlier this year. And in February, Pac-12 Commissioner George Klavikoff visited the school and was spotted speaking with SMU administrators during a Mustangs basketball game. Oh, Mr. Klavikoff. Wonder what his next job will be.
What is a Klavikoff?
Does not equal success.
Is he Russian? It sounds like a Russian last name.
Yeah, Russian to get out of the business. There's opportunity. The ACC, the league has been quiet on realignment for over the past 3 years, but Commissioner Jim Phillips has said that he's open to exploring all new potential streams. They've got teams that are trying to leave, like Florida State.
One thing, I know a lot of people have complained about the ACC commissioner, rightfully so, and he absolutely missed out on an opportunity to get Notre Dame to fully join their conference 100% when COVID was going on and they were only doing league games, and Notre Dame had to join the league for a year. Jim Phillips could have told Notre Dame that if you want to play football this year, then you've got to join us completely.
First of all, you don't tell Notre Dame anything.
What does the ACC have to gain from not telling them?
They can tell them anything they want. You know what Notre Dame's going to tell them? There'll be
you really
two birds.
Think Notre Dame would have gone the 2020 season without any football?
That was not going to happen. It just simply would not have happened. It was too valuable. Notre Dame is more valuable to the ACC. Notre Dame is the most valuable property they have. You've got Clemson football, but you've got Notre Dame and Clemson. That's it.
But that's the thing. They're not really their property. They're just part-time property is what they are.
But you either have them part-time or none at all, and you would have lost them.
And I agree with that now. But if you could have, I really think you could have.
If he could have
that in 2020,
let me tell you,
not.
No. If he could have, he would have. No one has been able to force Notre Dame to do anything, and they're not. I would say they're not going to. They may not be able to force Notre Dame, but Notre Dame is at some point is going to get. NBC has kept this life ring around Notre Dame for these last few years, and it's just dumb to me. They're a perfect Big Ten school. Not that the state of Indiana needs 3 Big Ten schools. The state is not. That would be unbelievable. It would be the only state with three Big Ten schools, and it would be. And I believe Indiana is possibly the smallest state, besides maybe Iowa, population-wise, in the Big Ten. So to have the most teams and be the smallest state, that I'm not sure how well that would work. But
plus, with Notre Dame, you get a lot of bleed over into Chicago, sharing fans in the state of Illinois.
Yes, sir. Speaking of Illinois, Jeremy, how are you, sir? Haven't seen you on here before. Jumping on from Mount Carmel. Appreciate you. Mike, pointing out the Brewers lost last night. The Cubs won, so they pick that game back up. And that means so they're back into a tie with the Reds.
Break.
Yeah, I'll have to look to see what the standings are. I'm trying to go by memory. But hello to everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. We appreciate you. Fred Kent from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Fred's from Easton, Pennsylvania. John from Southern Brown County. Mike, how are you? There's Jenny Gritty. Mentioning that IU Athletics sent out an email about season ticket holders selling tickets. We'll have to talk about that. She's not going to be using that service. 5 lefts. Philip mentioned. Jeremy. Appreciate you. Mike, Tanis, and Forrest. Also along for the ride. There's Kevin. Kent, if I didn't mention you as well. We've got to take a break. We've got a lot coming up today. Rob Cassidy on the program from Rivals, in addition to Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, Rick Bozich as well. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the Hey. Man, we finally got some storms in the last couple of days.
Oh, really? Y'all haven't gotten much rain? We got a ton the other day. And we've had a healthy amount. We haven't had too much or too little. We've had a pretty healthy amount. No drought this year, as it seems to be the case most years. However, I am ready for the summer temperatures to die down. They really haven't been that bad. We had 1 week where they were terrible. And really, other than that, it's been fairly mild, but summer is not my favorite season for temperatures regardless. So I prefer it in the 60s and 70s. We're not too far from that. Ready for concert festival season down in Louisville. Bring on Louder Than Life in September. I'm ready for that stuff. If you're going to Louder Than Life or Bourbon and Beyond in the comments, let me know. I'm curious who you're going to see. I'm looking forward to a little Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit.
What is it? 1990 called, John. They want their concert tickets back.
We love the 90s. I think if there was a generation, or not generation, but decade that I would have enjoyed growing up in the most, it would have been the 90s. And I was born in 97, so I didn't get a chance to enjoy that.
Okay, we'll have a discussion about some music. Because let me ask you this. I'll wait till we get on.
Yeah, we'll come on back and do it. I'm going to get my camera back on.
And remind me to point out that tomorrow it's you and
Shooty.
Who else is on?
I think Matt and Chris for guests, and maybe Dylan Sin as well. All right, 30 seconds.
We need to get sound tomorrow.
That's fine.
Hospitality Group, launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, welcome back on this Wednesday. Thanks a lot for being with us. Appreciate you. Looking forward to talking to Rob Cassidy this hour from Rivals. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star and Rick Bozich in hour 2. Don't forget, tomorrow I will not be here, but you will be in the capable hands of John, the producer, and Dustin Shooty. Matt Taylor will be along, Chris Denary, Dylan Sin, I believe. Looking at the Major League Baseball standings. Yep, the National League Central. It's funny. Chicago and Cincinnati now in tie it with a game and a half back of Milwaukee. Where are these? Oh, here we go. It's been a league or a division of mediocrity. Milwaukee has gone 4-6 in their last 10 games. Cincinnati has gone 3-7 in their last 10 games, while Chicago has gone 6-4. So Cincinnati and Chicago are fighting for a wild card spot, really. I mean, well, actually, all three of these teams are fighting for the playoffs because the division winner gets in. But I don't know. They're behind in the wild card. So you better win that division, I believe. I don't know if a wild card team will come out of the Central Division. Well, we shall see. We shall see. Oh, yeah. John Boy mentioned music in the break.
I was talking about the upcoming festival season down in Louisville with Bourbon and Beyond and Louder Than Life coming around in about a month. And I mentioned, first of all, if you're coming to one of those in the comments, let us know on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. I'd love to see who you're coming to see. But I mentioned that I'm excited to see Limp Bizkit, obviously the new metal group from the 90s, fronted by Fred Durst, who is back in those days was not the most beloved character in music and probably still isn't.
Well, I don't care about that, but he was mentioning that the 90s was the greatest music. And I'm like,
that's not what I said. I said if there was a generation or a decade that I wish I had grown up in, it would have been the 90s. Do I think that they had the best music? It's arguable. And I'm talking about from my taste, obviously. But I love rock music from all of the generations, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even the new stuff. I mean, obviously, I'm younger, only in my mid-20s, so I'm a lot more familiar with the newer rock music than most people probably are. But I love all of it. And even the 90s, the stuff that has like Limp Bizkit, Korn, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. Give me all that stuff.
Yeah, but if you notice, if you listen to radio, rock stations, what music do they play?
They're only playing the classic stuff. And I know why that is the case. The demographic of the people who are listening to classic rock is your generation. And that's not a knock. That's just the people that are listening to the radio for that particular reason. I'm not saying that that's the demographic on our radio stations. I'm talking about for the rock stations. Now, people who listen to the new stuff, a lot of people find that on Spotify, the Apple Music, those like streaming.
But where are the people that are listening to Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit?
I mean, honestly, if you look at, I don't have those numbers in front of me, obviously, but if you look at the younger generation, especially those who enjoy rock music, there's been what people are calling a new metal revival. And that's all of that music from the late 90s. Not only are those bands getting a lot more attention back compared to when they first came out, a lot of the newer, really young groups are styling their music on that 90s new metal style. So,
okay. I know.
I'm really nerding out on that kind of stuff, but I'm really into it. And that may have gone way over your head, but I mean, it fascinates me. I love rock music and I love festival season, and I'm excited about Louder Than Life and Bourbon and Beyond coming up here in about a month.
Fred says that George Klavikoff is headed to the Chicago Bears for an office job. I don't know if that's just a joke. I have not seen anything about that, but he could work for Kevin Warren if that were the case. And that would be ironic for both of them to head there after both having not exactly a great run as commissioners of their leagues. Would be funny. Pete mentioning Green Day, Nirvana, Weezer, Blink, great 90 band. Yes.
Green Day and Weezer will both be in Louisville this September. So good call there, Pete.
Shut up, Pete. I'm kidding.
Nirvana's stay was really short-lived, unfortunately, due to Kurt Cobain, and I've never really dove into Nirvana very much.
You know what?
I would enjoy them.
Wait a minute. You need that one song that plays. And there was Nirvana.
Oh, that's it's a song called 1985 by the group Bowling for Soup.
There you go. That names all the bands, but that starts from the 80s, doesn't it?
There's U2 and Blondie and music still on MTV. Springsteen, Madonna, way before Nirvana. We're still preoccupied. 1985.
There you go.
There you go.
That's a good one. That's a pretty good one. I like it, man. I like it. The weather's been, the weather has been fantastic. I mean, we've had some hot days, granted, but this is, what is today's date? August 9th?
Mm-hmm.
And here in central Indiana, the expected high today is not going to be much. I'm waiting for my stupid phone to connect. Where we go? 81 degrees. 81. Of course, it's going to be raining all day, it looks like. But 81 today, 83 tomorrow, 86, 87. Football players are loving this.
Oh, yeah.
All over. Let me tell you, high school, college, doesn't matter. They are loving this. And I'm happy for them. And we got to get out to do a show from a football practice. We'll try to do that next week. It just has not worked out from a scheduling standpoint for me so far. Hopefully we can do that next week as we get closer and closer to football season. Opening up with Ohio State, going to be a big day. I'm sure it'll be a sellout. It's the picture, the annual
That's right,
media.
the annual picture.
It may be the last one for a while too.
Yeah, depending on how the Big Ten decides to make their next set of schedules. It seems like the Big Ten loves to just scrap their old schedules and redo them again and then do the same thing a year later. That's
not liking to. They had to. They don't have a choice, but
they were doing it even before the conference expansion, though.
Well, they only did it because they had to.
Yeah.
But I wonder, that makes me wonder now. We've talked about Indiana and teams like that not having to play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State every year. But how long will it be before you get that kind of crowd again? They better get the picture this time, because I don't know when that's going to come around again.
And I don't know if you can. I'm going to pull my camera back on. We mentioned the picture on this wall behind me. The photo of Memorial Stadium was taken during an Ohio State game. Go figure. Of
course,
because
it's all red.
Was full.
And
yes, it's
full
all
red.
red. It looks like it's Indiana. And I've said this before. It's lame to set this as the expectation, but if you can cover the spread against Ohio State, which I believe right now is set around 27.5 or 28, that's a win for Indiana in week 1.
I disagree.
You think that really? I thought you would think that's a positive. You don't think covering the spread would be
not if it's by 20, not if you score 27 points, not if you're within 27 points. No, if you're within 2 touchdowns, maybe.
Oh my gosh, yes. If you're within 2 touchdowns against Ohio State, even though it's week 1 and you're at home, that's phenomenal if you're Indiana.
But you can't go into it.
I don't mean to sound lame by saying that.
You can't go into it thinking that, though. You can't say, well, if we only get our ass kicked so much,
And that's obviously not what Tom Allen is telling his team. Clearly, no,
Well, no, I
coach in the
understand
right
that,
mind would
but
do that. But from a fan perspective, if you want to have any hope after the Ohio State game, you want to at least see promise. You want to at least see the chance that there can be improvement throughout the season. And you don't want to be Indiana needs to get away from being one of those schools that's talking about looking forward to basketball season in the middle of September, which they're going to do that anyway, but you want to be able to enjoy the fall football season when you have it. I think that's more lame than anything when you're just saying, oh, let's just wait till basketball season. Let's wait till basketball, which is great. Indiana is basketball, and that's all fine and dandy, but you got to be able to compete with the big boys in football at some point, especially in this day and age where, as we always say, football is the engine that drives the train.
Exactly, and we'll see. But this will be the last time you see Ohio State for a while, I'm guessing. Let's see. Then you're going to have Michigan.
Michigan's not second. Are you talking about what?
No,
what
I'm just thinking out loud of the teams that are the teams like Michigan, Penn State that Indiana has played traditionally year in, year out, that you have traditionally seen in Memorial Stadium guaranteed every other year. That's not going to be the case anymore. You're no longer like after Ohio State comes to Memorial Stadium in September 2nd. I don't know when the next time that they will be in Memorial Stadium. It could be 4 years from now, which is probably a likely scenario. Normally it's, every other year. So it's, you've got a 2-year gap. So they're here now. They wouldn't be back for 2 years. I think it may be 4 years. Those things may double teams that you're accustomed to seeing. But
especially when you factor in the West Coast teams, not only are you eliminating divisions, but you're adding 4 teams to your conference.
And you're going to have more teams to mix in, more teams that need different games. And that is just, I think they should just do a freaking flex schedule every year. It can't be that difficult once you have a program like they seem to have. Indiana starts out with the Buckeyes, but the other Big Ten teams that they're playing this year, of course, well, all of the Big Ten East teams. Maryland, Michigan. When will Michigan be back? Of course, they go to Michigan, but we've got to take a break. We've got more coming up. Rob Cassidy from Rivals is going to join us. We're going to talk about some hoops right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Good morning,
hello,
Rob.
Jim. How are you? How are you guys?
Hey, buddy. How are you, sir? I appreciate you very much.
Hey, no problem. Just getting ready to head to the airport.
Now, you're down in – no, it's Travis is in Louisville, right?
Yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh. Just moved here from Miami last year, so I'm all over.
Why the hell did you do that?
Man, it got I moved to Miami when I was 25, and it was awesome. And then I got married and had a kid, and it got expensive, and we just had to we had to get out of there.
And it's hot.
And it's hot, and it's getting hot. It's only getting hotter.
I was in Cape Coral for 6 weeks this summer, and it was freaking hot.
Man, and it's every day. You think like when I first moved down there, it was like in the winter at least it was cool.
Did we lose you, Rob? Jim, I didn't lose. Am I disconnected or do you hear me? Oh, okay, we got you.
I can hear you. Sorry. But yeah, it's only getting hotter, so it's nice to be here. It kind of feels like fall in Pittsburgh right now. It's it's in the high 60s, which is more my temperature anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be great here today. High of 81.
That's nice. That's nice. It's
Now we were saying earlier, like we've only had, at least in our area of the country, one really bad week of summer, and that was just 2 or 3 weeks ago. Everything else has been pretty mild.
I was pretty surprised when I moved to Pittsburgh. Everybody said, "Oh, everybody in Florida was like, it's going to be so cold," and it was cold, but it didn't like get that cold. It didn't get like Minnesota cold, or it only snowed once. So I don't know. What have you guys been talking about? Realignment?
Oh yeah, shoot, that's just not stop. My God, I was scheduling. I think that I wish they would just do a flex schedule every year and just go off of the standings. They've shown they can do it. They've done it 3 years in a row, and 4 out of the last 5, or they've had to make the schedule. So just keep doing it.
And look, it would be good for viewership too. Like that's
I guarantee it would. It makes all the games better, more competitive. Your league, I think it makes your league better.
Oh, and also, eventually, like if they're going to keep doing this every year, I mean, they might as well just go to flex scheduling because you never know who's going to be in your conference.
The NFL does it every year.
Yeah, it works, and it works. It works well for them. NFL's a juggernaut.
Yeah, these stupid.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, it would.
Now, of course, you have people crying. We never get to play Vanderbilt this year. But it is what it is.
Exactly. They're going to cry. Well, there's always going to be crying.
All right, here we go, guys. 30 seconds. Nutritious meal prep that we cook up. The Fresh Fork takes care of all the planning, shopping, and prepping, and can even deliver them to your doorstep once a week. That's right. It's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Wednesday, August 9th. Jim Coyle with you as always here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Joined now by Rob Cassidy from Rivals.com. Basketball recruiting analyst. Rob, it has been a busy summer all across everything. We've got the college realignment we've been talking about, and yet that has to trickle down and affect recruiting.
Yeah, it does. They saw a kid whose name I cannot remember right now because my brain is fried, decommit from Washington State. This week, right after it all happened, and citing we don't know what conference they're going to be in as the reason that he decommitted.
Well, just saw a kid leave USC to go back to Oregon, I think, too.
It's it's a crazy landscape in college sports, and between the transfer portal and between realignment and between the new recruiting calendar where nobody ever gets a day off, it's it's a 365 day a year operation. I mean, it always has been, but it seems like it's become more of one in the last 2 or 3 years.
It's back in Indiana. They have no commitments for the 24 class. They have had a ton of visits. They've got guys that they're waiting for decisions, a lot of guys that they're waiting on decisions on, and all highly ranked recruits. So I don't think that they're in trouble at all. It's just waiting for these decisions to come out.
They have got, and this is what I like to say about Indiana, they've got irons in the fire, and they've got a lot of them. Now, it has to turn to concrete commitments, and you don't want to finish second and third for 6 guys, but you have to think that they've positioned themselves well for a couple of these guys. I really like their chances with Liam McNeely. Right. I think that they were probably running in second until the coaching change in Texas happened, and I think that really helped them kind of close that gap. They've had,
and then when he went to Montverde, that helped a lot when he went to Montverde as well.
Helped a lot too. They've got kind of a pipeline there with Shafino and Renew and those guys that were there. I really think he feels comfortable. I don't think that if it wasn't a serious situation, he wouldn't be coming back for a second official visit this year. I was told yesterday too in a text by somebody that would know that Mike Woodson's really working real hard with Boogie Fland right now too. Meaning, I mean, I don't like their chances there as much as I like him with McNeely, but I think they're a player. Woodson's going to go speak at the New York High School Coaches Clinic in a couple weeks, which happens to be at Boogie Fland's high school. I do not think that's a coincidence. But
Calipari and somebody else is going to be there as well.
Oh yeah, there's three heavy hitter coaches there, and I can't remember who the third one is. And they all happen to be recruiting Boogie. It's funny how that works in the recruiting world. I did ask why Dan Hurley wasn't there, and apparently he turned down the invite. So I don't know if that means they don't like their chances there or what happened, but he's not going to be attending.
And the recent drafts of Jalen Hood-Schifino, I'm sure Boogie Fland and players like that see that. Trace Jackson Davis as well, but especially the guards, they see what Jalen Hood-Schifino was able to do to come in and not be listed as potential one or as a definitive one and done when he came here, but he left as one.
Yeah, they've done a really good job selling that, I think, because, when you talk to one kid and they mention it, that's one thing, but it seems like every guard that you talk to about Indiana always says, nobody thought Jalen Hood-Schifino was a one and done, and Indiana made him one. So I think they've done a really good job kind of putting that on the marquee and pushing that with kids they recruit, and it's sticking because it's the number one thing you hear when you ask kids about Indiana these days is you hear about his process and how he went from off of everybody's draft board to a first round pick.
And they are working. Everybody that's coming in are high ranked recruits. I think they had like 9 visitors that were all in the top, definitely all in the top 100, but mostly in the top 50. These players. So everyone they were recruiting is an elite talent, and they're not going to get them all, but you've got to get somebody. And do they need to get someone to commit to kind of break the seal?
I think that might be a little bit overrated at this point, especially when you're Indiana and you've had some success recruiting in the past year. I don't think anybody's real hesitant with them right now. I think they just happen, when you're wading in deep waters like this, you're going to, it's never going to be easy. If Indiana wanted to go out and recruit the number 110 player in the country, maybe they'd have a commitment right now, but they've decided, whether rightly or wrongly, that they're going to swing with the heavyweights. And when you do that, it can pay off, or you can dump a whole bunch of resources into highly ranked guys and come out empty. And I was told once by Frank Martin, when he was the head coach at K-State, that the biggest thing about recruiting is being able to admit when you're beaten and then move on. So Indiana doesn't think they're beaten. They haven't moved on, and we're going to see what the strategy pans out like because I think it could be a great class. But also, if you spend your time swinging against Kentucky and stuff and losing, then you're scrambling to find your second and third option. So I think the next month or so is going to tell us a lot about what this class is going to look like.
And getting winning the Mackenzie Mbako Award with Kansas, that was also not just a feather in the hat, but I think that showed some recruits that, hey, Indiana is back to being a major player.
Yeah, it shows recruits that. And, it also signals to everybody else that, I think that there are some schools out there that have not adjusted to modern recruiting. And it's showing. And I think, it's so funny that, you look back at right when Mike Woodson got hired, the big thing was, he's a little older. He's never been a college coach. Sure, he can coach, but is he going to be able to recruit, in the modern landscape? But, he's had no problem. So that's not been an issue for them. And I think the Mbako thing kind of shows that, and there's some schools that have kind of been left behind a little bit when it comes to trying to do things the old way, the pre-name, image, and likeness day, the pre-transfer portal days. You get stuck in that, and you can woes me all you want. But, the proof is in the pudding, and I think Indiana's adjusted well.
Yeah, and so once they start getting the guys for 24, they're also deep into guys for 25 as well. Of course, you've got guys that are close to home, Jalen Harrelson, Trent Sisley, that they're looking at very heavily. And as far as that, who are some of the other guys, though, for 24 that Indiana, do you think that they're in good position with that are elite talent?
We spoke to those two that I think they're in a really good position with. It's going to be interesting to see what Patrick Ngamba does, the big man from Team Tico over in Virginia. He's got Indiana in his top 8. He hasn't visited yet, but he's got schools in there like Duke, and Duke is going to take a big man this week named Flory Badunga, who you guys probably know pretty well. I think Duke's going to get him, which is kind of going to de facto withdraw them from that recruitment. So Indiana could get involved there. It depends if they want to get them on campus or what, but it's not going to be Duke. They're not going to get both of them. So I'd watch him maybe for something to develop down the road. And then, that's one I definitely keep my eye
on. And then, of course, I still think they're going to find someone. They have an open scholarship right now for the upcoming season. And I still think that they're going to end up finding someone to fill that spot just for a body, if nothing else.
Yeah, there's always late transfers, something, we've still got, anytime you think that the transfer portal is done spinning, some coach goes out and does something stupid, it gets fired like Bob Huggins or something. There's too much time between now and then for something not to happen. It's like the way that modern recruiting goes, something will open up. And it's good, I think, maybe to hold a scholarship back if you are in the position to be able to afford to do that. So you can pounce on one of these late adds to the portal.
There was a story about from Trilly Donovan in regards to former Florida and Samford guard Case Glover. He's back in the transfer.
Man, I missed that.
And so he's back in and originally committed to BYU, but decided to reopen his commitment after discrepancies with his NIL package. Yep. So you got him and 3 options listed, and Indiana is listed as one of those.
Well, this is the point I was making earlier. It's so different now, and it's so smart almost to just, if you can afford to do it, to just have a scholarship there late. Because if something happens, you are among very few schools that now have a scholarship that can, swoop in and get a major, a difference maker at this late in the game. And that's not something that you could ever even imagine doing 10 years ago. People were locked up by now. But now it's, the chances are better than good that something is going to happen and somebody is going to be back on the market. And if you allow yourself the wiggle room to get in position late, you can really help yourself.
Yeah, he's a 6-foot point guard, averaged almost 15 points a game last year. So
could you imagine a player like that being available at this time 5 years ago? It's crazy. That's what I'm saying. Mike Woodson has done such a good job, especially when you consider his age and his experience at adapting. A lot of older coaches get knocked for they don't want to adapt to the modern world, and he has been impressive in the way that he's done it. In an adapt or die world, he's chosen to adapt.
And and we're a long way from the season, but this is a season. Last year, we knew what Indiana had. Not that I don't know who they have, but we don't know what they have right now because they have a lot of new faces. 6 new faces right now, which could become 7. So, and the return of Xavier, who didn't play last year, I don't know where they're going to fit in the pantheon of the Big Ten, which I feel confidently it's going to be in the top 3 or 4. We know what Michigan State has. We know what Purdue has. I just don't know where Indiana is going to fall out there.
And I think that's a problem, and not really a problem. That's kind of become the norm in college basketball now. I mean, look at even the rosters of teams like Kansas. Look at North Carolina. They've totally redone their rosters, and nobody knows anything anymore. It's I've always thought that these preseason coaches polls and conferences were a bit of a joke, but even now it's like you don't know how these pieces fit together. You have no idea how they're going to play together. Even if you do a foreign tour, you're still trying to kind of feel out your rotation at that point. So the team doesn't look like it's going to look like when the season starts. So it's all, even if you know who you have back, the rest of the teams in the league, a lot of them are crapshoots too. So you really, the sport is more unpredictable than ever. And I think that's probably a good thing from a broad fan perspective. For somebody trying to make sense of it like you and I, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Everything's a little bit of a coin flip. I don't think you saw that and kind of how the NCAA tournament shook out last year and the teams that were still standing at the end.
As the season will unfold, and the last 2 seasons, a couple seasons for Indiana have just seen improvement year after year with NCAA tournament play, with player development. This year, you had Trace Jackson Davis not only being drafted, but it was late in the second round, but is one of the few that got a guaranteed contract. You got Jalen Jafino, of course, who got drafted, which we talked about earlier. But what's more important for recruits to see right now from Indiana, team success or individual player success?
I think it's different strokes for different folks, but I think in talking to players, and I talked to a lot of them, they all obviously think they're first round picks because you don't get to this level unless you have that mentality. So I think individual player success, I really do. I mean, you cannot. And when it comes from a guy like Shafino, it's one thing to get the number one player in the country and put him in the draft. That's fine and whatever, but I don't think it makes as much of an impact on these guys as to take a kid like Shafino, who was not thought to be a one and done lottery pick, and make him one. Then you look like you did it. You don't look like you did it if you take LeBron James and LeBron James turns out to be LeBron James. There's another, you don't get, even if there is development there, you don't really get the credit for that. With Shafino and guys like that, you get credit, and then the buzz starts building, and then you can sell it. And they're doing a good job of selling it.
Speaking of LeBron, what do you think is going to happen with USC this year and Bronny James? They are set to be a very, very formidable team. And his status uncertain.
Yeah, I think they're still going to be darn good. I think Isaiah Collier is going to be one of the best players in the country. With the ball in his hands there, he'll really be able to shine. I don't know, with these heart issues, it seems like the timetables are different. I don't know. I mean, you saw Keontae Johnson, who almost died on the court for Florida. You have a major part of Kansas State's Elite Eight run last year. So I don't think it's a nail in the coffin for his career. I don't know that he'll play this year, but they haven't come out and said that he won't. Now, he's obviously not going to be ready to start the season, I don't think. But I don't think it's, unfathomable that he'll play late in the year.
And now with these additions from the former Pac-12 schools, USC, UCLA, Oregon, I know Washington's in there, but on a basketball side, there's no conference that has the marquee names that the Big Ten has now with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue. They just have the marquee. I know that there's Duke and North Carolina, but they're kind of a standoff over there now.
I mean, I really think that that's the third best league. I mean, really, I think it's the Big Ten and the Big 12. I mean, You can't. I mean, when you Arizona, Kansas, Cincinnati,
basketball
Houston,
without question.
Yeah, I mean, it's really something. Those two leagues, when it comes to basketball, are definitely the top two. It's gonna, and the ACC, they've got, you're right, they've got Duke and North Carolina, but then what?
It's just like football for them. They've got Clemson, and that's it, man. They're
and even Clemson last year was, it's that could be next on the rating block, I guess, because this isn't going to stop. This isn't the last time realignment's going to spin. Something's going to happen, 2 years from now. I mean, obviously, Florida State wants out. Who knows where they go? That conference could be in trouble sooner than later.
Would we have been better off if they would have just split football off itself, left everything else alone? The conferences could have stayed they're the same. With only football being separated.
Jim, that is the logical thing, but I don't know when this sport has ever done the logical thing. Yeah, that is, I think most people with a working mind would tell you that is where we need to go with this. Now, I don't going to pretend to know the logistics of the NCAA or why they do the things they do, but I've always thought that. I don't, you've got UCLA women's track team traveling to Rutgers. Like, is that really something we're going to do? Like, I don't know. It seems crazy to me, but like I said, I'm not there for the day-to-day. I don't understand how the obstacles that they have to face are going to get cleared. We'll see how it goes. I think eventually football will split off. Who knows when that will be, but it just seems too logical not to happen.
Yeah. And then football is still, what's going to happen with the Pac-12 is it, can we say that it's no more still, or can we say that yet?
Unless it's Oregon State and Washington State playing each other 12 times a year. I guess Stanford and Cal are technically still there too. I don't know if you call it the Pac-4 or what. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I guess it's dead unless they add the Mountain West, right? I guess that's the thinking over there is they want to merge with the Mountain West.
And I think that that's exactly what they should do, because I saw reports that Oregon was quite happy staying in the Pac-12 because it would have been an easier path to the college football playoffs for them, which that would be the same for Stanford and Cal now.
Yeah, but are they going to keep that automatic qualifying status?
Well,
if they merge with the
they would have to grow the league.
Yeah, and significantly, wouldn't they have to land like I don't know. I can't imagine that they're going to let him keep that status if they just add like San Diego State and Boise State. Are we going to have a college football playoff that features Oregon every year because they ran roughshod over? Well, I guess Oregon's not there anymore. That features who knows every year? Oregon State. I don't know who the best team in the remaining pack would be.
Yeah, crazy, man. I appreciate you, Rob, so much. What's coming up next for you?
I'm going to the Will Barton Elite Camp in Baltimore next weekend, which is always fun. He's always there, and it's always, the top kids from DC and Baltimore. They get some New York kids in. I don't really get to see those kids from the DMV very, very often, so I'll spend a couple days there, and then hopefully I try to take the opening weekend of football season off every year so I can just watch some games. So I'm hoping to be home for at least that weekend, and then we'll see.
Well, keep up. Make sure you keep following Rob's content. You can do so at thehoosier.com, the Indiana Rivals. And see if Case Glover may show up on the Indiana basketball roster.
I appreciate you guys for having me on, as always. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you, brother. Have a great day. We've got more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the market.
That was a very feral scream. I haven't heard from Kyle yet, but he's usually pretty prompt anyway. All right, 30 seconds.
On Patterson and Rogers. It's one of the most popular gathering spots in Bloomington. Whether you're out on a date with your spouse, friends, or coworkers, Feast Market and Cellar offers an extensive wine selection with a sommelier on staff to help you with your selections. Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Oh, here comes Jim.
Of course he's always. What are you talking about, man?
How's everybody doing today? Appreciate you being with us. Kyle Neddenriep joins us now from the Indy Star. Been out practicing your pass punting and kicking?
Putting a little bit.
Punting,
not passing or kicking.
Punting, not putting, putting.
No, I thought you said putting.
Sounded like it. It's that time of year for high school football's all underway. I figured you were out getting all your passing and punting and kicking practice out of the way.
No, I only threw the option pass to the running back, so no.
Shortstop. So were you quarterback? Did you play quarterback?
I played until my sophomore year, and I played freshman quarterback. I played sophomore JV, and then I moved to running back because I just could not throw like a varsity quarterback needed to. So I played running back and outside linebacker.
You've got all kinds of content you've been pumping out, man, as high school season is around the corner. But one of the favorite things that you always do are the coaches confidential things. I love that because that's the only time you don't get BS coach speak. They actually tell you something. And especially with you, they have a great relationship with you and great trust. So you're going to get complete honesty from these guys, which I like. But the latest installment is, or one of which was, what would you change to make the IHSA football better? What was the number one thing that came out of that for you?
It wasn't surprising. It was definitely seeding the tournament, seeding the sectional. Some form of that was definitely number one. I wasn't, it was kind of like, yeah, duh. I mean, we sort of did this last year, not the exact same question, but we flat out asked them what they thought about seeding, and most of them were in favor of it. So this time this was our fourth question, and I kind of just left it open-ended. I was not surprised by that, but it also led to some other interesting answers too. One of them said putting private schools in their own state tournament, which is something I've heard before. Now see,
in Kentucky, Indiana and Kentucky are very different. And I have experience with Kentucky just because of living in Southern Indiana. They're dominated by the Catholic schools down there, Trinity, St. Xavier. That's not the case in Indianapolis. Lexington, I think is kind of similar. Not always. Lexington Catholic, though, is always strong. But that's not the case in Indiana for some reason. The public schools are the stronger holds.
Well, they are. It depends the class. In the biggest class, yeah, it's been the public schools that have still, Cathedral's the one school that's kind of cracked into that group. And, in basketball, 2 years ago, they won a Class 4A state title, which was very unusual. That was not normally, that had always been dominated by the public schools. And so to break through for them at the 4A level, but you have had the Catholic schools and the private schools do well in the lower classes in high school football. Chittard's the all-time leader in state championships in the state. Cathedral's obviously got a lot. Cardinal Ritter traditionally has been not right now, but they've been a powerhouse. So Lutheran right now at 1A level is a powerhouse. So you have had at the lower levels, but yeah, the bigger public schools have dominated the biggest class in basketball and football. But now you're seeing Cathedral kind of cracking into that, and now they're playing 6A football. So, we'll see. They haven't been able to quite get over the hump, and it'll be tough this year too. I think Center Grove is just so good. And Ben Davis is also really good, but they're right there. They're at least in the conversation. But yeah, it's traditionally been public schools that have still dominated at the largest level. But yeah, we had some good answers. I thought, a lot of them too. And I kind of laugh when I look at who sent them, and like, oh, that affects you particularly,
right.
Your own school, which is fine. I mean, that's how you want it to be. I want them to but some of them are very specific to their own situation. So, but there are some really good answers in there. I think people will like reading through that, and some had no complaints, which I'm not surprised by that either. But, in high school football, I think is sort of the one sport where, the school, there is no substitution of like an AAU or travel or anything like that. There's 7-on-7, but it's not even the same thing as high school football. So it's kind of the one sport where I would say, yeah, it is in good shape. It's a big revenue producer for schools, and it holds a lot of weight in this state, and probably any state.
Indiana, one of the states that does not have spring football, but I saw that the IHSA is going to allow off-season practice, which some coaches don't like because that encourages one sport participation, which I agree with. You want athletes are better when they play multiple sports. It just makes you a better athlete. But also, Indiana is way behind the states that do have spring football. Those guys basically, by the time they graduate, have played another season than the kids that come out of Indiana.
Well, and I will say, like, the rules have changed enough to where to now, teams are practicing almost not necessarily practicing all the time or having a true spring football that, there's not necessarily that, but it's we say practice starts whatever day it was, August 1st or whatever. Really they've been practicing all summer, and that's by the rules. The teams are practicing, getting in real practice time, and not just football. You're in every sport. You are now allowed to do. There's restrictions on it and time limits on what you can do during the off season. But yeah, you're pretty much practicing, and that's kind of one of the. I know talking to the IHSA, it's kind of one of those things that goes back and forth. The way it is now, there's more ability to do that, and then you have coaches complain about it's burning us out, and I totally get that. I mean, but then you go the other way, and it's like, well, we can't work with our kids now. We're turning them over to travel, so it's kind of the yin and yang. It's the pendulum swings back and forth, and something I've talked to Paul Neidig at the IHSA about, and then before him, Bobby Cox about. It's like it kind of just depends which side you're on of that. It's kind of could be negative on both sides, and so I think it's sort of up to I think having some, like you said, it does lead to some specialization, but I think sometimes by high school maybe you need to decide if you're going to choose one or two sports. It probably is time to do some more off-season work, and if you're really trying to play college, I mean, if that's what you're wanting to do, then maybe
But the majority aren't. I mean, it's a small percentage that are actually going to go on to play college. So, and then now Indiana has soccer, but is also in the fall. Does that hurt? If that, I see someone mentioning move soccer to the spring, but they still want to add spring football. And I'm like, well, how the hell does that help you if you're counting on soccer players? But if you want to move their season to the spring and then you're going to have practice in the spring, it doesn't help you much.
No, and you do see some kickers who they'll do soccer and football, and they'll just come to football practices for they don't need them for the whole practice, obviously, in football. So, you have seen some doubling up on that side of things, and I think that has worked well. But if you're going to play full time, if you're playing like safety and trying to play soccer, that's obviously hard. It's some kids do double up on sports, and they in the same season, which is that takes a lot of probably flexibility on the coaches' parts and for the kids to really put that time in. It's tough, but yeah, I mean, there are just more opportunities out there as far as sports you can do now than there used to be too. I mean, you mentioned soccer. That's still a relatively new sport. It's only since the 90s has it been an IHSA sport. So
yeah. Didn't have it when I was in school, man.
No. I mean, it was very new when I was in school. It was very new, like in the first few years. So, it's different. I mean, they're just there's opportunities. Kids want to play. They don't want to just and I get that too. So if you have another sport, you can get on the field. I mean, you're going to probably lose a handful of kids, lose some depth because of that.
What about the transfer situation? Is it still a problem? I know that it's been a minute since I've really heard of anything big popping like we had a couple of years ago, especially in basketball, but that still seems to be an issue for some.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be an issue. It's always going to be, why is this kid just sort of the way the way it's set up now? And I do think, and I mean, we get on the IHSA about a lot, and some is deserved, I would say, like all of us. Some criticism deserved, and I'm criticized and deservedly sometimes. It's just the way it is. But I will say, I think they do a pretty good job of allowing transfers for the. I'm talking about the big picture. You can get eligibility most of the time and not be held to like you can't play, sort of thing. But there are times I know where it's like, well, why is this kid eligible and this one's not? And there's some sort of hang up where maybe the school doesn't sign off, or there's some sort of he's transferring for athletic reasons, where on the surface it looks like, well, this kid's transferring for athletic reasons obviously too, and I'm the one that's not eligible, or I'm the one that's only gets limited eligibility. So yeah, I mean, because the rules are sort of gray in Indiana, more than other sports, and I should do another study on this to see what other states do. It's been a few years since I've done that, but the last time I did it, it was Indiana, I think, allows more transfers and allows kids to play more than a lot of states do. But there's also cases, it's just more of a gray area. If they can find evidence, then you're not going to play, or you have 365 to sit out. Where other states might say, all right, if you're transferring and you're not moving, this is the rule. You sit out for half a year, you sit out for whatever. So you kind of know going into it. But yeah, because the rules are gray, you're going to have questions about it. You're going to have people say, well, they're skirting the rules, and and people are trying not to get caught. That's kind of how life is, though. I mean, you're always going to have people skirting the rules, but yeah, I mean, it's transfers will, I think, always be something it probably goes back to the beginning of high school sports. It's always going to be a hot button topic.
Well, especially now with all of college having the basically Wild West free open portal where kids can go anywhere, anytime they want, which is a completely different situation because they're not going from school to school that is being paid for by public dollars. So it's a different situation. So they're probably seeing that too. And they say, oh, well, I want that as well, which we can wish in one hand and blow in the other and see which one fills up first.
Well, yeah. And also too, was it 10, 12 years ago, sort of there's this open enrollment that became possible for students. And that doesn't necessarily apply to the IHSA rules on being able to hop from school to school without moving. So that sort of created this sort of, I don't know what the word is, but it sort of created this, like, why can we move for school purposes, academic purposes, and not have to move, or transfer and not have to move? And then in sports, we can't get eligible under the same rules, basically. So that did change things a little bit too. And, I will, for the most part, I think kids are able to leave or able to find better opportunities for themselves. But, if you're high profile, you kind of put yourself in the crosshairs sometimes. And that's what we've seen the most is when kids like high profile basketball player doesn't get eligible, then it becomes kind of this bigger hot button topic.
What's coming up next for you?
I'm finishing up a lot of our coverage. We should have our super teams out before too long here. We'll have more of our rankings and things like that. We'll have, just a lot of our class by class stuff. Our 5A and 6A are out now. 3A should be out tomorrow. 2A, 4A, and 1A should all be very soon. So all that coming. I've got a story on Center Grove football coming probably next week. And then, like I said, our super team stuff. And I have to go down the list and see what else we got. So sort of a kickoff column too coming, and a lot of other stuff, a lot of good feature ideas, I think, coming that'll be sprinkled out throughout the year that I think will be interesting and fun to write.
It's all great stuff. And if you're following high school sports in the state of Indiana, you need to be following Kyle Neddenriep. If you're not, you're missing out. Kyle, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
You bet. Take care, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joining us. We've got more coming up. The great Rick Bozich, president and general manager of the Chicago White Sox, joins us next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether it's
Thought you'd like that.
I loved it. It's been a fun few days for White Sox fans.
Oh my God, it has. They have never has a more mediocre team made more headlines.
That's right. They pushed the Bears and the Cubs out of the conversation in Chicago until it's over now. But
Hey, the Cubs, man, they're trying to take advantage of the Reds' dysfunction.
yeah, it's a 3-team race, right?
Yep,
Did the Reds lose last night 3-2? Is that what it was?
they did. Gave up a daggone 2-run homer late, I think.
What's
Just
the
like
word?
I was-
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What's the word from Hoosier football? Nothing?
Crickets.
Really?
Crickets. I mean, let's see.
Thought I heard something that they were pleased with the receiving group or something.
Oh,
pleased with the running backs as
They
well,
are?
from what I heard. Says there's not like a standout, but there's a deep group of them.
well, you got
Henderson and,
Josh Henderson returning and Jalen Lucas.
And you got the guy from Wake Forest.
Oh yeah.
So if the O-line can, and that's the really big what if for Indiana football. Can the offensive line do anything?
Well, and Indiana just added the kid from offensive lineman from Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
That's interesting.
He
Yeah.
transferred in?
6'4", 300 pounds.
When did that happen? I missed that.
Spent last season in the Wisconsin football program in his one season with the Badgers. He did not see playing time. He spent one season in Madison as a preferred walk-on.
Oh, okay.
He was a
Interesting.
three-sport athlete in high school, earning all conference honors in football, regional champion in shot put and discus, and played basketball. So he's got good footwork.
Is he walking on to IU or is he
Oh.
getting a scholarship?
He follows former Badger coach Bob Bostad.
That is
What is-
interesting.
What did Rob Cassidy have to say about basketball recruiting? Anything good?
Nothing like definitive. Just talked about he thinks that Indiana's in great shape with Liam McNeely, and how that Mike Woodson has exceeded anybody's expectations. If they're worried about his ability to recruit, just now he's got to turn those into fruitful interactions with all these guys that he's brought in. But there's no way that they're not going to get some of them, and I agree with him that you're not going to get if they brought in 8 or 9 one of the top guys, you get 2 of those. Well, that's a win at that level. But
Right.
All right, here we go, guys.
In Limestone, with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
welcome back on this Wednesday, August 9th. Jim Coyle with you as always, joined by the great Rick Bozich, brought to you by our good friends at Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville and in Evansville. Appreciate you guys. Hope everything is going well. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jim?
Even as a Reds fan, I'm hanging in there. I'm faring better than you, and I can't believe that right now.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be that way this year. White Sox are losing games and losing fights.
Man, and how dumb was that fight? I watched that over and over, and I'm like, okay, really? The tag? Are you kidding me?
Well,
And I know there was something before a tag before.
Yeah,
something.
I mean, well, it goes back to last year, really. Last year, Cleveland and the White Sox were going for the division title, and Elvis Andrus said that the Tribe would crumble, and they didn't crumble. The White Sox crumbled, and then they won the division and chanted F Tony La Russa in their locker room after they clinched the division. And then this year, they've had some trash talking going on the field, and Anderson. Friday night, a Cleveland rookie slid into second base head first with his hands out, and Anderson used his glove and knocked his hand off the base. And although he was called safe on the field, New York reviewed it, and for some reason they called him out. And Francona lost his mind and got thrown out of the game. So then when it happened again Saturday and Ramirez slid in, I think he felt like Anderson was trying to tag him too hard, and he said something to him like, quit disrespecting the game, and you don't need to do some of the stuff you're doing. And Anderson said, "You want to fight?" And it was like a hockey fight. He threw his gloves down to the ground.
Bam! Instantly.
Put his fist up, and then he got clocked.
Yeah. Well, he threw two good punches. It looked like they connected, but then he gets dropped like a shotgun.
Yeah, and then he was out on his feet for a while. He was kind of glassy-eyed walking around, and they got him back in the clubhouse at one point, and then just when the fight was ending, the Cleveland third base coach and the White Sox manager started doing the traditional baseball fight where you start screaming in each other's face, and Anderson came running out of the clubhouse, and then somebody tackled him and dragged him back in, and it went on for like 14 and a half minutes. It's the most entertaining 14 and a half minutes of the White Sox season.
You beat me to it, man. You beat me to it. Well, hopefully it sparked. But and then the funny thing that came out, and there's a lot going on because of whoever just got traded to the Yankees.
Middleton, yeah.
You talked about the lack of
players sleeping in the bullpen.
And then the GM comes out yesterday and basically says that's all bull crap and this, that, and the other thing, where there's been other guys that have already said that it's true. That
Lance Lane confirmed it was true. Yeah.
To me, it makes the GM look really stupid when he just sits there and denies it all when it's on your watch. I would think I would have approached that a little differently.
One, a good look for a very bad, long couple of seasons for the White Sox fans. So it won't it won't go on much longer.
And then the National League Central, this is going to be a bout of mediocrity. Who can survive, basically, because we've got very, very three mediocre teams. Cincinnati just has very little pitching.
Right.
You're not going to win without pitching. People are just going to knock the crap out of you.
No, I mean, if one team can get into like a hot streak and win 5 or 6 in a row and create a little separation, I think that'll be the deciding factor. And the Cubs just had their hot streak. I mean, they're improved, but I don't think they can sustain it.
Cincinnati's problem is the losing streaks. They've had 3 6-game losing streaks, 2 in the month of July alone.
That'll kill you. The Brewers are probably the best all-around team because they have the best pitching. So at this point, but it'll be fun. I mean, if it's a 3-team race until the end of September, that's good for baseball.
And they're without question the best team straight up between the Reds and the Brewers because it's probably 6-2, whatever they played 9 games, I think. So it's probably 5 or 7-2, whatever. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Rob Cassidy joined us a little bit ago. We talked some basketball, talked some recruiting. Indiana in good position with a lot of recruits. They have no one signed for the 24 class yet. I think that will change. But you've got Flory Badunga, who is probably getting ready to announce he's going to Duke. So that'll be that. And then we'll get on to the 24 class. But you got the upcoming season that Indiana still has a remaining scholarship open, and there still continues to be talk. And there is yet another name that is being floated out there that Indiana is being connected to, and I've already lost it. Kez, the kid from I got it. Oh man, I had it up a minute ago and already Kes Glover. Kes
Nope.
Glover back in the transfer portal. Former Florida and Samford guard. He averaged nearly 15 points a game last year. And so
At Samford?
yeah, Samford, not Stanford.
Right.
But
And has he talked to IU? I mean, is there any connection?
I have not seen. I think. Let's see.
I mean, the last one I was gone last week, but the last one I was aware of was the Air Force guy. It sounds like he came in and they really weren't that interested in him. So I don't know. And I noticed that Kentucky went and got a foreign player. So that seems to be what some schools are doing, is get some European guys. So
Well, absolutely. But it seems surprising that those guys weren't already well known or in demand.
right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a changing world out there, man. Every day is a new adventure. So I don't even know how good this guy from Croatia is. He better be pretty good, because if he's a guard, because Kentucky's already got a lot of really good young guards.
We'll see. It's going to be an exciting season, but football is around the corner. Louisville and Indiana. Louisville is a linchpin game for Indiana. By that I mean it's one of those games they have to win. I think if they have any chance of having a successful season, they cannot lose that game. That'd be like losing to Indiana State, not because they're on the same level, but it's just one of those games on your schedule that you're supposed to win. But they unfortunately they filled that with Louisville instead of Ball State or whomever they really should have been. And especially going forward, Indiana has to stop scheduling anybody above their pay grade in those 3 non-conference games. They need 3 wins. I hate that. I hate to go see Indiana play, Indiana State or Ball State. It's not exactly a great college game that you're going to expect, but that's what they need for their program, because if they do that, and then with the changing schedules that would be coming and not having to play Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State every year, they have a legit shot of making a bowl game every year, especially as the schedule, they're going to get hit. They're going to take some hits and have to play some tough games, but they're probably going to have a few more winnable games.
I agree. And we've both been saying this for a number of years. When you play non-conference games and you're in the Big Ten East, you have to schedule 3 non-conference wins, and there's no shame in doing it. We've seen that's how Bill Snyder made Kansas State relevant. Iowa State has followed that game plan to become better. Kentucky, although it does play Louisville, they only play 8 SEC games, so the other 3 games they play are usually automatic wins, and they usually, a lot of years, they play 8 home games. So that's what you've got to do. And playing Louisville, this is the first of a 3-game series. If it all gets played, you got to win the one at home, and you got to win the one on a neutral site. And I don't know. I have a hard time deciding how much of a chance they have this year, because it's Brahms' first year, but there's a lot of optimism around Louisville. He did a really good job in the transfer portal and got some good dudes.
They already have a better quarterback.
They've got a proven quarterback who knows their system in Jack Plummer, the former Purdue guy who went to Cal last season. They've got a couple of really good running backs, like Indiana did. They did well in transfer portal, getting some receivers in. Their biggest questions for Louisville are on the defensive line and linebacker. They lost some really good players, 2 guys that were picked in like round 3 and 4 in the NFL draft and probably will play in the league, and they got to replace them. So it's game 3. Louisville opens they play Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. It's not on Georgia Tech's campus. It's in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. And then they play Murray State, so they're likely to come in 2-0. And is likely to come in 1-1. And it's a big game for Indiana, because it's a non-conference game they have to win, and it's a big game in terms of see what kind of crowd support you have. You don't want to go to Indianapolis and have more Louisville fans in the building than Indiana fans, but that's always a possibility. And you also have to remember, as we've talked about before, with Mark Hagan as a co-defensive coordinator at Louisville, and with Brahms' connections from when he was at Purdue, Louisville's going to recruit Indianapolis and Indiana hard. They've already got one guy committed for next year. And so, that's another reason why it's an important game for IU.
Yeah, when Indiana played Ball State up at Lucas Oil Stadium a couple of years ago, well, you were one of the maybe you're one of the only. I mean, you, me, and about 1,200 of our friends, maybe. Boy,
When did we crowd?
It's what is the purpose of Indiana playing there? What if it was somebody else, I would get it, but this is Indiana. You can't fill your own damn stadium. Why are you going to a bigger stadium in Indianapolis, which is cool and all that? Yeah, but you're not there yet, and you don't have the support. And I think it just makes it look worse. It's a kind of an away game, another away game in essence.
Well, it shouldn't be, but I think I give them credit for trying different things. I mean, you try to grow your fan base in Indianapolis. You try to do things to, you can tell recruits you're going to play one game in an NFL stadium. And if you're going to play a 3-game series with Louisville, you're going to have to you either have to make it a 4-game series, so it's 2 games home and home, or a 2-game series just home and home. And if you make it a 3-game series, you got to put the third game in a neutral site. So you either got to put it in Indianapolis or Cincinnati or somewhere, and it makes more sense to put it in Indianapolis. So, but I agree with you. Once this series is over, they need to schedule 3 games that they're going to win until you get the program built to take the next step. I mean, look at a lot of other teams in the Big Ten. They usually play 3 non-conference home games that they're going to win. The teams that are not the big dogs in the Big Ten. That's just you have to do it. And as sports writers, we might grumble that who wants to go watch, Indiana State or Indiana and Akron, but they got to get to 6 wins. Then they got to start winning a game, what they haven't done in 30 years. Is that right? 1993. You got to take each step as it goes. And they're getting a break next season with, as you mentioned, getting out of the division with Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
And then on top of by playing Louisville, now they have to go to Louisville next year.
Yeah.
So now you have one less non-con game. Truly, you've got to go on the damn road.
Mm-hmm. And then Louisville comes to Bloomington the following year.
Yeah, but this is not. Does not.
Well, that's why there was talk in the wintertime that I think they don't want to play the rest of the series.
Yeah. Well, and with all the schedule changes and with realignment, and the Big Ten is going to need to adjust all the schedules, I could see that happening. And Indiana would be, if they could get out of it, they would be very, very smart to do so. And it would be an opportunity. This is actually an opportunity, I think, for Indiana to build their football program right now. You're getting out from under this sledgehammer. It's like one of those things that just drop, just keep pounding. That's what playing in the Big Ten East has been. All right, you're going to be out of that. Indiana has to commit to football, take advantage of this breath of air, and do whatever it takes to get competitive, and do it now because your schedule is going to be easier. We don't know what their schedule will be next year because they've already taken it back off of the board, other than Florida International on August 31st, Louisville on September 7th, and then Charlotte September 21st. They have to have another. No, that's all 3 non-con games. So yeah, we don't know what. At least they won't be opening with a Big Ten team next year.
Yeah,
unless they play in week 0.
That's another thing for Indiana is that, how many times have they, when they started the season, they start the season with Ohio State. I can think this is at least the 3rd time Ohio State's come into Bloomington for the season.
I think it's 5 out of 7 opening with a Big Ten team, which is ludicrous when there is no one in the Big Ten has done that. And Ohio State has been 3 of them, I think.
Right. I mean, look at it. Okay, like Maryland is a team that is roughly equivalent to Indiana. I mean, they're trying to. Okay, Maryland opens up against Towson State, then they have Charlotte, and then they have Virginia. So I mean, Virginia is an ACC team. They're one of the worst ACC teams. that's the way you got to do it. That kind of way.
And Indiana actually used to do that back in the Bill Mallory days. You remember they were always 3-0,
right?
And then they'd go 3-3 or whatever. But they were always 3-0. Especially in the age of transfers, everybody's still learning the system. Boy, I still don't get the.
Here's one, Jim. Here's one. Michigan. How about Michigan? They're a contender for the national championship. They're second in the coaches poll. Here's who Michigan opens up the season against: at home against East Carolina, at home against UNLV, and at home against Bowling Green. They don't even play a Power 5 team. They play their first 4 games at home. They don't open with a conference. I mean, that's the kind of schedule that Indiana should have. That's Michigan we're talking about, a team that's playing for the national championship, and they did the same thing last year.
And their football program will probably make about $24 million in those 4 home games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they just keep adding to the pie. Rick Pitino had a great remark. I stole this idea from him. He said, "Why not just separate football?" Which would have been the smart thing, because football is so separate from everything else. I know basketball is kind of, but not like football. Football's the engine that drives the train. Why not just separate football, and the conferences could have been left intact other than that? Basketball, baseball, yada, yada, yada.
I agree. That's something that should be talked about. But
it's too late now, though.
Yeah, it is. But it is too late. But I mean, we all know that what we have today is going to change next year and the year after that, until they finally get it to the way they really want it. I mean, this is an evolution of where it's going. And it's ludicrous to think about who in the world is going to care about a Rutgers-Oregon basketball game. Who is going to care about a Penn State USC basketball game, men and women? I mean, or in the ACC, if they had Stanford or Cal, like, Florida State against California in basketball, and they travel all the way across the country. It's ridiculous what they're doing. And I understand the reason, and TV, they want to get all these high impact games for streaming. But what started to be different is that more and more programs are being left behind, and rivalries of importance are being broken up. It started with Oklahoma leaving in the Big 12 to go to the SEC. Now they will no longer play Oklahoma State after this year. And now you look at Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State have been left behind. Oregon and Oregon State probably won't play anymore. Washington and Washington State won't play anymore. I mean, I don't think that's what fans want. I really don't. But and we've already talked about the stupidity of, if you're a baseball player, you go to USC and UCLA, which are good college baseball programs. Do you really want to be in a league where you're flying across the country in April and playing a game at Penn State where it's going to be 37 degrees? I don't think you do. So it's.
I think that they'll be smart enough to do some different things, especially with the Olympic sports. They're going to have mass events in probably locations where you're going and you're competing multiple, which you'll have to do that for cost measures, which would also be kind of cool too, because you're going to see more teams. But yeah, there's going to be good and bad to it. But we've got to take a break.
The word I've always heard is geographical integrity. And other people have said there shouldn't be a team in your conference that's more than one time zone away. Shouldn't be, because we're old school though. We're the dinosaurs, and whoever the people are who are making the decisions and driving the bus don't feel the way we feel.
Well, back in my day, just kidding. We've got to take a break. Rick Bozich is with us. We're talking college realignment and all that has gone with that, and recruiting and everything else. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the market, do they stay at 18? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I need to be off like at 10:25 because I got to be on the ACC radio network at 10:30.
Tell them we said hello.
I will.
And our condolences.
You're going to ask me, do they stay at 18 or go to 20? I think they'll go to 20 and have 2 10-team divisions, and IU will be right back.
Really?
With
You think they'll go back to divisions?
Why not 4 5-team pods?
They might. I don't know. I don't know this new commissioner. I don't even know what he's thinking.
I want 4 5-team pods and flex scheduling. And actually, you can flex pods.
I don't think
Yeah, you
pod benefits Indiana at all because they're going to stick them in one of the powers to give them an easy win. You don't want to be a pod if you're Indiana.
Yeah. Unless they're in a pod with Purdue and Illinois.
Not if that pod had Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan. You don't want to
pod. If you're Indiana, you definitely get Purdue. You definitely get one of Ohio State or Michigan. You'd get one of them. You'd probably get a West Coast team. Let's see.
At that point, you call the
Illinois. Okay.
Do you have any room?
Penn State, Rutgers, Maryland,
Rutgers,
Michigan State. Oh, Rutgers. Did I? Yeah, perfect. Rutgers,
the East,
Maryland, Penn State. There's your powerhouse. Michigan State.
Well, 3 big dogs are not going to want to. They're all going to be in one separate league. Penn State, whoever gets. They don't want it to be like Penn State and Ohio State in one and Michigan in the other. That's unfair for Michigan. They don't want Michigan and Ohio State in the same one. That's unfair.
UCLA and USC, they won't want to be in the same one probably, but it's geographically better. I don't know.
I don't think.
However, it's going to be. It'll only be that way for a year or two, and then somebody else will come up with another idea.
The Big Ten loves to scrap schedules and rewrite them every 6 months.
Well, haven't they already had one? Like they already said who they're playing next year. That's already
but Oregon and Washington are going to be able to play in 2024.
So that's already got to go on the shredder, right?
Yeah, that's already getting scrapped. That's what I'm saying. The Big Ten loves to
rewrite
schedules, and then something.
You can't pull the schedule up now. I just tried to pull it up. It's the only thing that are up there are the non-con games.
It's. All right, here we go, guys.
Endeavor Hospitality Group, launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, and we are chopping it up with Rick Bozich. Don't forget to go to the Chop Shop for the best in custom meats, in-house made products, and a great steakhouse. In addition to Cabello Italian restaurant located on the square in Bloomington. Big Ten is at 18 teams right now. Yesterday, Commissioner Sankey of the SEC says the SEC is good at 16. That's because they don't want Florida State. Florida State can't get out of their contract, and there's nobody else really for them to add. Clemson can't get out of their deal.
Right.
I don't know how much it would cost them but it would have to be substantial.
Not the number thrown at 120 million. There was somebody was floating something that Florida State was trying to work with some private equity fund to raise 120 million to get them out, and then they'd pay it back over time from the additional money they get from the SEC. So, but I wouldn't think Auburn and Florida would really be that excited about Florida State coming in the league. They've already got that part of the country. And Florida State really
doesn't bring a lot.
Yeah. They're not in a big TV market. They've already got Florida to bring the state of Florida. Florida State was good for about 20 years, but ever since Jimbo Fisher went, they really haven't. Now this year they're back in the top 10, but they're not they're not Notre Dame. They're not USC. They're not Alabama. They're not LSU. They're not, Auburn. They're not Tennessee. They're not.
I think that the SEC is they. I think that they are fine.
Yeah, they are.
They don't need anything else. They are a football conference They were already a really good football conference. They've added Texas and Oklahoma. Boom. We're set. We're solid.
Texas A&M. They got the whole state of Texas, which is mammoth.
Yeah. Now they don't have the TV markets that the Big Ten has, but Sankey says, well, the SEC doesn't need to add that to generate excitement on the West Coast, yada, yada, yada.
Or across the world.
Yeah, or globally.
Globally.
I saw that. Yeah. Yes, very good. But the Big Ten is going to make more money. The Big Ten schools are going to make more money. Now, by adding Oregon and Washington, that's not going to bump it up a ton, but they're not having to pay them a ton either. And they gain Seattle and Portland TV markets with Los Angeles TV market. I've said this before: New York, Chicago, Washington, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Indianapolis. The Big Ten has done an incredible job of managing through this crazy time and keeping themselves in a position where they don't have Florida State whining about what I don't even know what the hell. It's like, that's like the middle child complaining about not getting enough attention or something. It's like, dude, you haven't done
it. It's posturing, and it's bad. It's bad for the league. For them to denigrate the league, their own, they have to stay in it. It's like you're right. It's like a little kid that didn't get its way, and they're screaming and kicking like, "We want out of here. We can't get out, but let us out. Be nice to us. You're being mean to us." You signed the deal. Your conference commissioner signed the TV deal with ESPN, which the ACC lost this a long time ago. Give the credit to Jim Delaney. He was the first one to come up with the Big Ten network. It put the Big Ten ahead of the curve. Then the SEC followed. The Pac-12 came after that, and their commissioner did a terrible job. He only cut a deal with DirecTV. Pac-12 network didn't have nearly the impact as the other two, and then the ACC was the fourth one to grab a TV network, and most of the money had already been committed to the other leagues, and they're behind, and they're going to be behind.
Yeah, was Rutgers a bad addition for the Big Ten, or just a bad addition for Rutgers?
I don't see what Rutgers brings. I mean, people talk about the New York market. People in New York don't care about Rutgers unless they're really winning at an elite level, which they've never done in football. Now, they've been better in basketball recently, and they're starting to get some recruits, it sounds like. But
it does get the Big Ten network into New York, though, right?
I guess it does. I would think the Big Ten network would have already been there. The thing about the Big Ten is the Big Ten has so many large state universities, so many alumni that live all across the country that you've got people who want to watch the Big Ten network who grew up, went to Ohio State or Michigan or Indiana, who live on the West Coast, who live in Atlanta, who live in Florida, who live in Boston, or who live in New York or Chicago or whatever, and they want to watch the Big Ten network. And
if Rutgers is in such a bad way, then the Big Ten could say, "Hey, you're welcome to leave."
The one I'd like to see him get rid of is Nebraska. I don't think Nebraska brings anything to the Big Ten, and I think Nebraska belongs with the Big 12. That's where they should be.
Yep, that would be. Well, you can get rid of Nebraska and Rutgers. Boom.
There you go. I'm down with that. I'm down to go back to 16 teams.
That would be great. It's not going to happen. And neither that or are they even going to stay at 18 or move to 20? You think that they'll move to 20? If they do, they cannot add a team from the ACC. It's just too much money there, it looks like, for me. So that eliminates North Carolina and Duke and Virginia and Florida State. Cal and Stanford, since the other teams are in, but I've not heard really much talk generating there. Notre Dame still, I don't get Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they cannot make the money that they would make if they were a part of the Big Ten. Not even close. I think it would probably be a $50 million difference.
Yeah, that's just so big to their identity that they don't need a conference. They're on their own. They've got their own deal with NBC. They are Notre Dame. They view themselves as the only real national university and with a national following. And maybe it'll change now that Swarbrick's in his last year as the athletic director. Maybe the new athletic director, who I think is coming from a television background, will change that. But I that's so big to their identity that
is the Big Ten holding out for that.
I would think they would. Yeah, I would think they'd want them. It's either the ACC or the Big Ten, I can't see the Notre Dame going in the SEC. First of all, they really couldn't compete at a high level and win, and there's no geographic ties to the SEC.
We've got to get you out of here. I don't think Notre Dame deserves to be considered for an automatic berth. I mean, just because I'm like going, man, I don't care because you had Newt Rockney and the Four Horsemen. What the hell does that have to do with today? But oh well. Well, go enjoy. Rick's going to go talk to him on the ACC network, by the way, and you tell him the Big Ten
on the radio, not on TV. Yeah, ACC Sirius Radio Network or something. I don't know. Katie, I'm doing it for Katie George.
I was getting ready to say, tell Katie said hello. I haven't seen her since the bowl game, but yeah. And the Big Ten sends their condolences.
Okay.
Buddy, have a great one. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks.
Make
have
sure
a good
you
weekend.
Make sure you give Rick Bozich a follow if you're not on WDRB.com or at his on his Twitter. Man, always fun. But yeah, who knows? I think that the Big Ten is will hold out rather for Notre Dame. And I did not know about Jack Swarbrick being in his last year. That will make a huge difference. It's just inconceivable while Notre Dame just brings Notre Dame. And some people say, well, who cares? It's still a brand. Notre Dame is still a brand. That's why they are able to negotiate a straight up contract with NBC by themselves. Nobody else can do that independently. Now, if Ohio State was independent or Michigan was independent, but Notre Dame has not had the success that these other teams have had in the last 10 years or maybe even longer. But it's because they have a long-standing, far-reaching audience. That's why. But they belong in the Big Ten without question. They always have. But man, to say you add Notre Dame, who else? Stanford probably wouldn't come without Cal. I don't know. That would be something. But we'll see. We'll see. Not going to happen this year. I don't know that they expand anymore this year because I do not expect a shakeup from Notre Dame. The ACC, those schools, they are frozen. It's only people that can move, by the way. The Pac-12 was able to do that because of such horrible mismanagement. Their teams were free to move. That's why UCLA and USC are going to be in next year, and then Oregon and Washington right along with them. Colorado gone to the Big 12. Arizona State gone to the Big 12. It is what it is. But I'm just going to be so curious as how they're going to manage football with the 18 teams, or if they were to go to 20. The 18 teams, it's just going to be a free-for-all. And I guess the top two teams are going to go to the Big Ten Championship. We talked about that. And there's going to have to be a myriad of tiebreakers. And there's going to be so many teams that do not play one another with the 18. You only have 9 conference games. So the most you can play is half the conference. You will not play against half of the conference. And that is down from playing against your entire division and 3 teams from the other division. So you were formerly playing about 75% of the conference. Now that's dropped to half. That's fine, except for how in the world are you going to tie break when you don't play half the teams, when the teams are not playing each other? Very interesting. It's going to be lots of questions. Hey, don't forget, tomorrow you will be in the capable hands of John, the producer, and Dustin Schutte, as I have to travel and can't be on. But I'll be back Friday. Looking forward to that. So, I think you will hear from...
We'll hear from Chris Denary. Should hear from Dylan Sims. Still trying to confirm that. And then we'll try to get some Tom Allen sound from today's press conference. That'll be later on.
Yes, sir. I will be there for that. As a matter of fact, going out to that first time I will have seen Tom this year. Schedule's just not lined up, man. But a fun show today, man. Big thanks to Rob Cassidy from Rivals, by the way. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com, Indiana Rivals, to stay abreast on all that's going on, as he talked about, whether it was Liam McNeely or Kez Glover possibly being mentioned. That's in the forum section right now, talking about the former Florida and Stanford guard, Mason Williams, and Alec Bussey doing a great job keeping that. Cal Neddenriep from Indy Star, thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate it. Great talk with him today. And, of course, our good friend Rick Bozich, who joins us each and every week. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Until Friday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.